3 days after Elena revealed her secret to the world, Marcus received a letter. It came in a plain white envelope, no return address, slipped under his door while he slept. Inside, 5 words typed in black ink. "We know what she is." Marcus's hands shook as he read it again. Someone was watching them. Someone knew. And that someone wasn't just curious. They were hunting. Because when you're different in a world that demands sameness, when you're powerful in a world that fears power, love isn't enough to keep you safe. Sometimes love makes you a target. What happened after that wedding in the woods wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous. Something that would test whether Marcus and Elena's love could survive not just the truth, but the people who wanted to destroy it. Stay with me, because what comes next will show you that sometimes the hardest part isn't accepting who you are. It's surviving in a world that refuses to accept you. Let's go back to that moment, that exact moment when everything changed. When 200 people watched Elena transform from a bride in white into something they'd only seen in nightmares or ancient stories whispered around fires. The screams were immediate. Chairs toppled as guests scrambled backward, crushing flower arrangements, knocking over the arch decorated with white roses and ivy. Children cried. Women fainted. Men pulled out their phones, hands shaking so badly they could barely hold them steady, recording everything. Marcus's Aunt Patricia clutched her chest and dropped to her knees, certain she was having a heart attack. David grabbed Marcus's arm, trying to pull him away, shouting something Marcus couldn't hear over the roar of blood in his ears. But Marcus didn't move. He stood frozen, watching the woman he loved complete her transformation into a creature that shouldn't exist. A massive serpent, easily 12 feet long, her scales shimmering in the fading sunlight, her eyes still that haunting gold, fixed directly on him. She could have attacked. Her body was built for it, powerful muscles coiled beneath those gleaming scales, a jaw that could unhinge, teeth designed to grip and never let go. But she didn't attack. She lowered her enormous head and made a sound that broke Marcus's heart. A whimper, a sob, the sound of someone who just lost everything. That's when the first rock flew. Someone from the back of the crowd hurled a stone that struck Elena's side. She recoiled, hissing, and the crowd panicked further. More people ran. Someone screamed to call animal control. Someone else shouted about the devil. And Marcus, finally breaking from his paralysis, stepped forward. He walked slowly, deliberately, placing himself between Elena and the mob forming behind him. His voice when he spoke was steady. "Back off, all of you, now." David grabbed his shoulder again. "Marcus, man, you need to get away from that thing." "That thing is my wife," Marcus said, not taking his eyes off Elena. Elena shifted, her massive body moving with impossible grace, positioning herself so that Marcus was protected by the curve of her form. She was still protecting him, even now, even after everything. Grace pushed through the remaining crowd, her face streaked with tears and fury. She faced the guests, many of whom she'd known her entire life, and her voice rang out clear and sharp. "You all knew my grandmother. You knew my Aunt Sarah. You heard the stories, and you stayed quiet. You let us live here. Let us be part of this community because you knew we were different and you chose to ignore it. But the second it's undeniable, the second you can't pretend anymore, you throw stones?" Mr. Holloway stepped forward slowly, his face pale but his voice measured. "Grace, this isn't about you. It's about what that creature could do." "Elena's not a creature," Grace said fiercely. "She's my daughter, and she's never hurt anyone in her life." Mr. Holloway glanced at the serpent. "Maybe, but people are afraid, and fear makes people dangerous." Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Elena wasn't born knowing she was different. That realization came slowly, in fragments. When she was 7 years old, living with her grandmother in that small house on the edge of Millbrook, she woke up one morning and couldn't find her legs. She remembered screaming, thrashing in her bed, feeling her lower body fused together, scaled and powerful and wrong. Her grandmother rushed in, calm despite Elena's panic, and held her until she shifted back. It took 3 hours. 3 hours of Elena sobbing, convinced she was dying, while her grandmother whispered prayers and promises that everything would be okay. When Elena was finally herself again, exhausted and terrified, her grandmother sat her down at the kitchen table and told her the truth. "We are different, baby. We come from a long line of women who carry something ancient in their blood. Your great-great-grandmother, she was from a village in Nigeria where they worshipped a goddess named Nagu, a serpent goddess, protector of the innocent, destroyer of threats. When the slavers came, Nagu made a bargain to save her people. She bound herself to human form, walked among them, and her children carried that dual nature forward." Elena, still shaking, asked the only question that mattered. "Am I a monster?" "No," her grandmother said firmly. "You are a guardian, but people fear what they don't understand. So we hide, we learn control, and we never ever let anyone see what we truly are." Elena spent the next decade learning that control. Her grandmother taught her breathing techniques, meditation, ways to ground herself when she felt the transformation coming. She learned to recognize her triggers: extreme fear, intense anger, deep emotional connection. Anything that made her heart race too fast risked triggering the change. So Elena made herself small. She avoided conflict. She didn't date. She didn't form close friendships. She lived a careful, controlled life where nothing ever got too intense. And it worked. For years it worked. Until Marcus walked into the library on that rainy October afternoon, and everything Elena had carefully constructed began to crumble. He made her feel things she'd spent years avoiding: safety, desire, hope. And those feelings were dangerous. Because every time Marcus made her laugh, every time he held her hand, every time he looked at her like she was the most important person in his world, Elena felt the serpent stir beneath her skin. The wedding had been her breaking point. Standing in that bridal chamber, feeling the weight of 200 pairs of eyes waiting for her, feeling the magnitude of the vow she was about to make, Elena's control shattered. And now, running through the Georgia woods, Elena faced a truth she'd been avoiding her entire life. She couldn't have both. She couldn't be Marcus's wife and keep this secret. Marcus found her 3 hours later. Elena had coiled herself in a small clearing deep in the woods, her massive body wrapped around the trunk of an old oak tree, her head resting on the ground. She'd cried herself into exhaustion, and in her serpent form, those tears were thick and viscous, leaving trails down her scaled face like melted gold. She heard him coming before she saw him. His footsteps were heavy, crashing through undergrowth, his breathing labored. He'd been running, searching. Elena lifted her head as Marcus burst into the clearing, and for a moment, they just stared at each other. He looked terrible. His white shirt was torn and stained with dirt. His face was scratched from branches. His eyes were red-rimmed and wild. But when he saw her, his entire body sagged with relief. Thank God. Elena made a low sound in her throat, something between a warning and a plea. She didn't want him here, didn't want him to see her like this. But Marcus approached anyway, slowly, his hands raised. "It's okay," he said softly. "It's just me." Elena's instinct was to flee, but she was so tired, tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of fighting herself. So she stayed. Marcus sat down on the ground just a few feet from her massive, coiled form. They stayed like that for a long time, him sitting cross-legged in the dirt, her watching him with those unblinking golden eyes. Finally, Marcus spoke. "My dad used to tell me this story when I was a kid, about a guy who fell in love with a woman made of fire. Everyone told him he was crazy, that she'd burn him alive if he got too close. But he loved her anyway. And you know what? She did burn him. Not on purpose, but because that's what fire does. And instead of leaving, instead of hating her for it, he learned to live with the burns. I'm not saying you're going to burn me, Elena. I'm saying I don't care if you do. I'd rather have you, all of you, even the parts that might hurt me, than live without you." Elena shifted, her body uncoiling slowly. The transformation back was always harder. It required intention, control, a conscious choice to compress herself back into a smaller, more fragile form. But she made that choice now. For him. It took 15 minutes. Marcus watched the entire time, never looking away, never flinching. When she was finally human again, naked and shivering in the dirt, Marcus immediately shrugged off his torn shirt and draped it around her shoulders. "You should leave," Elena whispered. Marcus shook his head. "Not happening. You don't understand. This isn't something I can control. Today was proof of that. The more I love you, the worse it gets." "So we'll figure it out," Marcus said simply. Elena finally looked at him, and the raw emotion on his face nearly broke her. "How? How can we figure this out when I can't even promise I won't transform again? When the whole town just watched me turn into a monster? You didn't hurt anyone, Elena. You protected me. I saw it. Everyone saw it. You could have attacked, but you didn't. You shielded me. That's not a monster. That's the woman I love." Elena's voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. For lying to you. For not telling you before the wedding. For ruining everything." Marcus reached out and gently tilted her face up. "You didn't ruin anything. You showed me the truth. And I'm still here." Before she could respond, they heard voices in the distance. Shouting, dogs barking. The search party had expanded. Marcus got to his feet quickly, helping Elena up. "We need to move. Can you walk?" Elena nodded. "Where are we going?" Marcus looked toward the sound of the approaching searchers, then back at Elena. "Away from here. Anywhere but here." They ran. Elena, still weak from her transformation, stumbled several times, but Marcus caught her every time. They moved deeper into the woods, away from Millbrook, away from the life they tried to build. Behind them, the voices grew louder. And somewhere in the back of Elena's mind, she wondered how long they could keep this up before loving Marcus cost them both everything. By nightfall, the footage had gone viral. 17 different people had recorded Elena's transformation at the wedding, and within hours, those videos were everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. News outlets picked it up. Local first, then regional, then national. By the next morning, Elena's face was on every screen in America. The bride who became a snake. Marcus watched the coverage from a motel room 40 miles outside of Millbrook. He'd paid cash, used a fake name, kept the curtains drawn. Elena sat on the edge of the bed, wrapped in blankets, staring at nothing. She hadn't spoken in hours. On the television, a news anchor interviewed Mr. Holloway. "I've known the Crawford family my whole life," he was saying. "They're good people. But what we saw yesterday, I don't have an explanation for it." The anchor leaned forward. "Are you afraid? Should the community be afraid?" Mr. Holloway hesitated. "I think until we understand what she is and what she's capable of, people have a right to be cautious." Marcus turned off the television. "They're going to hunt me," Elena whispered. "I won't let them," Marcus said. Elena laughed, hollow and broken. "How are you going to stop them, Marcus? You're one man. There are millions of people who just watched that video. Millions who now know I exist. And they're terrified." Marcus took her hand. "So we run. We disappear. We go somewhere they'll never find us. And then what?" Elena turned to face him. "We hide forever? We live our entire lives looking over our shoulders? That's not a life, Marcus." "What's the alternative?" Marcus asked, his voice rising. "You turn yourself in? Let them study you like a lab rat?" Marcus immediately regretted his tone. "I'm sorry. I just don't know how to fix this." "You can't fix it," Elena said quietly. "This is what I was afraid of. This is why I should never have let myself love you. Now you're in danger too." Marcus took her hand again. "I don't care about the danger. Elena, look at me." She did reluctantly. "I knew who you were, what you were, and I married you anyway. Right there in those woods. I chose you, and I'm choosing you now." Elena's tears came harder. "Why?" "Because I love you," Marcus said simply. "And because you deserve to be loved. Not in spite of what you are, but because of it." Then Marcus's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, frowning at the unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him press accept. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was professional, clipped, Mr. Green, this is Agent Catherine Walsh with the Department of Paranormal Affairs. I need to speak with you about Elena Crawford. Marcus's blood ran cold. The what? The Department of Paranormal Affairs. We've been monitoring the situation in Millbrook, and we need to bring Miss Crawford in for questioning. Marcus stood up quickly. She's not going anywhere with you. Mr. Green, I understand your protective instinct, but Miss Crawford represents a potential threat to public safety. We need to assess her capabilities and determine if she poses a danger. She doesn't pose a danger to anyone, Marcus said through gritted teeth. With all due respect, sir, you're not qualified to make that assessment. We are. And if she refuses to come in, then we'll be forced to come get her, Agent Walsh said. And I promise you, that will be far more unpleasant for everyone involved. The line went dead. Elena stood slowly. What did they say? They want you to turn yourself in. For questioning. Elena nodded like she'd expected this. I should do it. No, Marcus said immediately. Absolutely not. Marcus, if I don't, they'll hunt us. You heard her. They'll come for me anyway. At least if I go willingly, maybe I can control the situation. Elena, Marcus said gently, what choice do we have? They looked at each other, both knowing the answer. They had no good choices, only impossible ones. They came for Elena at dawn. Marcus woke to the sound of boots on pavement, shouted commands, the mechanical click of weapons being loaded. He rolled out of bed instantly, his heart hammering, and looked out the motel window. Black SUVs surrounded the building. At least a dozen armed agents in tactical gear positioned at every exit. Elena was already awake, sitting up in bed, her eyes wide and gold-tinged with fear. They found us. This is Agent Walsh, a voice called through a megaphone. Miss Crawford, we know you're inside. You have 2 minutes to come out peacefully before we come in. Elena stood slowly. I have to go. Like hell, Marcus said. Marcus, look outside. There are dozens of them. If I run, if I fight, people will get hurt. Maybe you'll get hurt. I can't risk that. She walked to the door. Marcus grabbed her arm gently. Elena, please. If you go with them, I don't know when I'll see you again. Elena turned, her eyes swimming with tears. Then you have to trust that I'll find my way back to you. She kissed him, quick and desperate, and opened the door. The morning light was harsh. Elena stepped out onto the concrete walkway, raising her hands above her head. I'm coming out. Don't shoot. The agents moved with military precision. 3 of them approached while the others kept their weapons trained on her. They pulled her hands behind her back, secured them with reinforced restraints. Elena didn't resist. She kept her eyes on Marcus, who stood in the doorway, every muscle in his body screaming at him to do something. Agent Walsh stepped forward. She was tall, in her 40s, with sharp features. Miss Crawford, thank you for cooperating. You're being taken to a secure facility where we can assess your condition. What facility? Marcus demanded. Where are you taking her? That's classified, Mr. Green. You'll be contacted when appropriate. You can't just take her without telling me where she's going. Actually, Agent Walsh said coolly, we can. Miss Crawford is being detained under the Supernatural Entities Act. There is no act, Marcus said. Not publicly. No, Agent Walsh agreed. But it exists, and it gives us the authority we need. Marcus, don't, Elena said. Please, just let them take me. I'll be okay. Marcus looked at her, saw the plea in her eyes, and felt something inside him crack. So he stepped back, hating himself for it, but he stepped back. The agents loaded Elena into one of the SUVs. She didn't look at Marcus again. The convoy pulled away, and Marcus stood watching until the last vehicle disappeared. Then he pulled out his phone and called Grace. They took her, Marcus said. The government, some agency I've never heard of. They took Elena. There was a long silence, then Grace said, her voice heavy. I was afraid of this. You knew. You knew this could happen? I warned Elena her whole life that the world wouldn't accept what she is, Grace said. But she fell in love with you anyway. Grace, I need your help. I need to find out where they took her. Come to my house, Grace said. I'll tell you everything I know. But Marcus, you need to understand something. Elena's not just different. She's valuable. She's proof that there's more to this world than most people can imagine. And people in power don't handle that kind of proof by setting it free. They study it, control it, use it. I'll get her back, Marcus said. I don't care what it takes. I believe you, Grace said softly. I just hope that when you do, there's still enough of her left to save. The facility was called Site 19, and it didn't exist on any map. Located in remote Virginia, buried partially underground and surrounded by security, it was where the government kept the things they didn't want the world to know about. Elena was placed in a cell, not a room, a cell. 12 by 12 feet of reinforced concrete with a drain in the center, a metal cot bolted to the wall, and cameras in every corner. No windows, no natural light. Just the constant buzz of fluorescent bulbs and the knowledge that she was being watched every second. They ran tests, blood draws, tissue samples, scans using machines Elena had never seen before. They asked questions. When did the transformation start? Can you control them? How long can you maintain your serpent form? Have you ever hurt anyone? Elena answered some questions, refused others. They didn't push. Not yet. But she could see it in the eyes of the scientists. Fascination mixed with fear. She wasn't a person to them. She was a subject, a specimen. On the third day, Elena overheard a conversation she wasn't supposed to hear. Two guards standing outside her cell, talking quietly. If she transforms again, we have orders to terminate. You sure? I saw the memo. Director says if she becomes unstable, if she poses any threat, we put her down. Can't risk something like that getting loose. Elena pressed her back against the wall, her heart pounding. They would kill her, not maybe. They had already decided her life was expendable. 4 days after her arrival, the power went out. Elena sat up immediately, her senses sharp. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in red. Alarms blared, and somewhere down the hallway she heard shouting. Then impossibly she heard Marcus's voice. Elena! Elena, where are you? Her breath caught. It couldn't be. Marcus, she screamed. I'm here! I'm in here! Footsteps pounded toward her cell, and then Marcus appeared at the reinforced window in the door, his face bloody and determined. A woman in scrubs stood beside him, fumbling with a keycard. Stand back, the woman said urgently. This door is reinforced. When it opens, get out fast. We have maybe 3 minutes. Elena pressed herself against the far wall. The woman swiped the card. Once, twice. On the third try, the lock disengaged. The door swung open, and Marcus was there, pulling Elena into his arms. How did you find me? Later, Marcus said. Right now we run. The woman in scrubs, whose name tag read Sarah Chen, led them down corridors. I'm a nurse here, she explained as they ran. I've been watching what they do to the people they bring in. It's not right. When I heard someone was planning a break-in, I volunteered to help. They reached a service stairwell. This leads to the maintenance level. There's an exit to the woods, but it's monitored. You'll have maybe 30 seconds before they realize you're gone. Marcus nodded. That's 30 seconds more than we had. Thank you. Sarah handed Elena a bundle of clothes. So you're not running in a hospital gown? Then she looked at Elena. For what it's worth, I don't think you're a monster. I think you're extraordinary. They ran up 3 flights of stairs, Marcus supporting Elena when her legs threatened to give out. Behind them, the alarm changed pitch. Lockdown protocols engaged. They knew she was gone. The exit door was exactly where Sarah said it would be. Marcus slammed it open, and they burst into cold night air. The facility behind them was surrounded by chain-link fence and razor wire. Spotlights swept the perimeter. Dogs barked. We're not going to make it on foot, Elena said, already hearing guards mobilizing. Yes, we are, Marcus said, because you're not on foot. Elena, you need to change. Now. Here? Now. It's our only chance, Marcus said. You can move faster than any of them. You can get us out of here. But I can't carry you. I'll hold on, Marcus said. I trust you. Elena looked back at the facility. She thought about the cell, about the cold table where they'd drawn her blood, about the conversation she'd overheard, and something inside her snapped, not in panic, in rage. She let the transformation come, Within seconds, she'd become the serpent, massive and powerful. Marcus didn't hesitate. He wrapped his arms around her neck, pressing himself flat against her scaled body. Go! Elena moved. She was faster in this form than she'd ever allowed herself to be, her powerful muscles propelling her across the ground like lightning. Guards shouted, shots fired, bullets whizzing past. Elena dodged instinctively, weaving between obstacles. She could feel Marcus clinging to her, could hear his heart pounding, and she pushed herself harder, faster, putting distance between them and Site 19 until the shouts faded and the only sound was wind and Marcus's breathing. She ran for miles deep into the Virginia wilderness until her body burned with exhaustion. She found a clearing near a stream and gently lowered herself. Marcus slid off her back. Elena, still in serpent form, could barely move. The transformation back required energy she didn't have. She lay coiled in the grass, her breathing shallow. Marcus knelt beside her, his hand on her scales. It's okay. Rest. Just rest. Elena made a low sound, trying to tell him she needed to change back. But her body wouldn't cooperate. Exhaustion dragged her down, and within moments consciousness slipped away. When she woke, the sun was rising. She was human again, covered by Marcus's jacket, her head resting on his lap. He'd stayed awake all night, watching over her. She looked up at him, and the love in his eyes nearly broke her. You came for me. Of course I came for you, Marcus said softly. They stayed hidden in the woods for 3 days, living on berries and creek water, moving when they heard helicopters overhead. On the 4th morning, they found an abandoned hunting cabin. It was barely standing, but it had walls and shelter. Marcus built a fire while Elena collapsed onto a dusty cot. That night, after they'd eaten a meager dinner of foraged plants, Elena stared into the fire. Marcus sat beside her. You want to talk about it? About what happened at the facility? Elena was quiet. Then she began to speak. My grandmother told me this when I was 16, after my first full transformation. She said it started in Nigeria over 300 years ago. There was a war. The village was losing. Their priestess, Adaise, went to pray, and a spirit answered. Nagu, the great serpent, guardian and protector. Nagu made a bargain. She would save the village, but in exchange, she wanted to walk in the human world. So Adaise let Nagu merge with her soul. Together they became something new, both human and serpent. That night Adaise transformed and the enemy fled. The village was saved, but Adaise was changed forever. When she had children, her daughters carried that same dual nature. Not all could transform, but they all carried the potential, the gift. Elena paused. Every woman in my line has used this gift to protect people. That's what we are. Guardians. Then why does the world treat you like a threat? Marcus asked. Because people fear what they can't control, Elena said simply. Marcus was quiet. Then what if we gave them another option? What do you mean? What if instead of hiding, we showed them what you really are? A protector. What if we proved you're not the monster they think you are? Elena wanted to argue, but a small part of her wondered if maybe he was right. Maybe there was another way. We'd need help, she said slowly. A lot of help. Then we'll find it, Marcus said. Your mom, David, Sarah, they all helped us. There have to be others. People who believe in you. Elena looked into the fire. Okay, let's try. But if this goes wrong, we run. Deal? Deal. They stayed in the cabin for 3 more days. Marcus managed to get a message to Grace, who responded with information. Sarah Chen had been fired. David was being questioned, but Grace also sent hope. There were others out there, people who knew about the supernatural world. She was trying to reach them, trying to build support. On the 4th night, Elena woke to absolute silence. The forest was dead quiet. Wrong quiet. Marcus was already by the window. They found us, he whispered. Elena moved to his side, shadows moving through trees, at least a dozen figures surrounding the cabin. How did they find us? Drones probably, Marcus said. Heat signatures. We've been in one place too long, a voice called out, amplified by a megaphone. Elena Crawford, this is Agent Walsh. We have the cabin surrounded. Come out peacefully and no one has to get hurt. Don't, Marcus said. If I don't go, they'll come in, Elena said, and you'll be caught in the middle. I don't care. We face this together. You have 60 seconds. Elena felt the serpent stirring, responding to her fear and anger. She could transform, could create chaos for Marcus to escape, but that would give them exactly what they expected. A monster. 30 seconds. Elena stood, walked to the door, and opened it. She stepped onto the porch, hands raised. I'll come with you. But Marcus Green goes free. He had nothing to do with my escape. He's guilty of aiding a fugitive, Agent Walsh said. He's coming too. Then you'll have to take us both by force, Elena said, because I'm not going peacefully if you arrest him. Agent Walsh sighed. Miss Crawford, you're in no position to make demands. Actually, Elena said, I am, because you have no idea what I'm capable of when I'm protecting someone I love. The agent shifted nervously. Agent Walsh's expression hardened. Last chance. Surrender now or we will use force. Elena felt the transformation beginning. Her skin shimmered with scales. Her eyes flashed gold. And then a new voice cut through the standoff. That's enough, Agent Walsh. Everyone turned. A man was walking through the ring of agents, and they parted to let him pass. He was older, maybe 70, with dark skin and white hair, wearing a simple suit. He carried himself with authority. He walked up to Agent Walsh and handed her a document. Sir, this isn't, Agent Walsh started. That's a federal order, the man interrupted. Signed by people above your pay grade. You will stand down immediately. Agent Walsh scanned the document, her face going pale. With all due respect, sir, this is highly irregular. In matters concerning citizens with unique abilities? The man finished. Yes, it is. But in this case, they have. Because Miss Crawford has become something of a cause, and the last thing this administration needs is video of federal agents gunning down a young woman on her porch. He turned to Elena. My name is Dr. William Hayes. I'm with a different department. One interested in cooperation rather than incarceration. I'd like to speak with you, if you're willing. Elena glanced at Marcus, confused. About what? About giving you and others like you a choice, Dr. Hayes said. About building something better than cells and secrecy. Will you hear me out? Elena looked at Agent Walsh, who was seething but outranked. She looked at Marcus, who gave her a small nod. Okay, Elena said, I'll listen. They walked into the woods, the three of them, while the agents waited. Dr. Hayes moved slowly, like he had all the time in the world. Miss Crawford, he began, I know you have no reason to trust the government after what you've experienced. Site 19 operates under old protocols, old fears. I'm here to offer something different. Which is a partnership, Dr. Hayes said. You're not the only person in this country with abilities beyond the ordinary. There are others. Psychics, healers, individuals with strength or speed far beyond human norms. For decades, they've been hunted, studied, imprisoned. I want to change that. Why? Marcus asked suspiciously. Why do you care? Because I was one of them, Dr. Hayes said simply. He held up his hand, and Elena watched as his fingers began to glow with soft golden light. I can heal, Dr. Hayes explained. Not everything, but enough that the government took an interest when I was young. I spent years in facilities like the one you escaped from, being tested, being used, until I convinced the right people that I was more valuable as a colleague than a prisoner. And now you want me to do the same? Elena asked. I want you to help me build an organization where people like us aren't prisoners or weapons, but partners, Dr. Hayes said. Where we work with the government, yes, but on our terms. Where we use our abilities to help people, to protect those who can't protect themselves. Just like your ancestors did. He knew about her lineage. Someone had done their homework. And if I say no, Elena asked, then you continue running, Dr. Hayes said honestly. Continue hiding. Continue living in fear. I can give you maybe a month before they find you again. Maybe less. Agent Walsh and people like her won't stop. This is your chance to stop running and start living. Elena looked at Marcus. What do you think? I think it sounds too good to be true, Marcus said, but I also think we're out of options. If there's even a chance he's telling the truth, maybe we should take it. What would this partnership look like? Elena asked. You'd train, Dr. Hayes said. Learn to fully control your abilities. Work with others like you. And when situations arise that require your unique skills, you'd respond. Voluntarily, with full legal protection and compensation. You'd be employees, not prisoners. And Marcus? What about him? We protect families too, Dr. Hayes said. Mr. Green would be under the same protection as you. No more running, no more hiding, just a life. Not perfect, not completely normal, but a life. Elena felt tears threatening. She was so tired of running, tired of being afraid. I need time to think. Of course, Dr. Hayes said. I'll give you 24 hours. Here's my number. He handed Elena a card. Real paper, real ink. Call me with your decision. He turned to leave, then paused. Miss Crawford, I meant what I said. You're not a monster. You're not a threat. You're exactly what this world needs, if we're brave enough to accept you. He walked back toward the cabin. Within minutes, the agents had all withdrawn, leaving Elena and Marcus alone. Elena sank to the ground, overwhelmed. Marcus sat beside her. What do you want to do? I don't know, Elena whispered. Then we'll figure it out together, Marcus said, like we always do. They called Dr. Hayes the next afternoon. Elena's decision had come after a night of talking about futures and possibilities and whether trust was something they could afford. In the end, it came down to one truth. They were tired of running, and maybe it was time to try something different. Dr. Hayes had been true to his word. Within a week, Elena and Marcus were relocated to a secure facility, but not like Site 19. This place was more like a campus, with actual rooms, windows with mountain views, freedom to move around. There were others there, people with abilities. James, who could manipulate fire. Lydia, who could read emotions. Thomas, whose strength was superhuman. Nia, who could become invisible. All of them had stories like Elena's, years of hiding, fear, and isolation. But here, for the first time in their lives, they weren't alone. Elena trained. She learned to transform at will, quickly and without pain. She learned to control her strength in serpent form, to move with precision instead of just power. She learned that she could partially shift, taking on enhanced senses or scales as armor, without fully changing forms. And slowly, carefully, she learned to forgive herself for all the years she'd spent hating what she was. Marcus stayed by her side through all of it. The organization gave him a job as a liaison, someone who helped bridge the gap between the enhanced individuals and the normal humans working with them. He was good at it, patient, understanding, able to see both sides. 6 months after joining Dr. Hayes' organization, which they'd learned was called the Threshold Initiative, Elena went on her first mission, a hostage situation in a warehouse where traditional law enforcement couldn't get close without risking casualties. Elena had gone in through the sewers in her serpent form, navigated the building's infrastructure, and extracted all 5 hostages without the hostage takers, even knowing she was there until the last moment. No one had died. No one had even been seriously hurt, and when the news reported on the miraculous rescue, they'd done so without showing Elena's face, without revealing what she was, just reporting that a specialized unit had resolved the situation. For the first time in her life, Elena had used her abilities openly and felt like a hero instead of a monster. 2 months after that mission, Marcus proposed. Again. They were sitting on the facility's roof, watching stars appear as the sun set, when he pulled out a ring. It wasn't the one from before. That one had been lost somewhere along their journey. This was new, simpler, but somehow more meaningful. Elena Crawford, Marcus said, I asked you this once before, in a forest in Georgia. But I want to ask you again, here now, when you're not running, when you're not hiding, when you're fully yourself. Will you marry me? Again? Elena laughed, tears streaming down her face. Again. They got married a week later. Not a big ceremony this time. Just Elena and Marcus, Dr. Hayes officiating, and their new family from the initiative watching. Elena wore a simple white dress. Marcus wore jeans and a button-down shirt. They exchanged vows in a garden behind the facility, and this time, when Elena said I do, she meant it without fear, without reservation, without wondering if she'd have to run again. When Marcus kissed her, she felt her eyes flash gold, felt scales shimmer across her skin for just a moment. But instead of panicking, she laughed. "Can't help it," she whispered. "You make me emotional." "Good," Marcus whispered back. "I plan to keep doing that for the rest of our lives." They got a small house on the edge of the Threshold facility's property. It wasn't much, but it had a porch and a view of the forest, and it was theirs. Elena continued going on missions, using her abilities to help people, to save lives. Marcus continued his work as a liaison, building bridges, helping other enhanced individuals adjust to their new lives. And in their free time, they lived, really lived. They cooked dinners together. They argued about what to watch on TV. They fell asleep on the couch during movies and woke up with stiff necks and laughed about getting old even though they were both still in their 20s. One evening, about a year after their second wedding, Elena received an unexpected visitor. Grace arrived at their home with tears in her eyes and her arms full. "Baby, I brought you something," Grace said. She set down a worn leather journal on their kitchen table. "This belonged to your grandmother, and her mother before her, and hers before that. It's our family history. Every woman who carried the serpent's blood wrote in it, their stories, their struggles, their triumphs." Elena opened the journal with trembling hands. The first entry was dated 1847, written in careful script. "My name is Abani, and I am the first of us to write our story down, so that those who come after will know they are not alone." Elena read page after page, stories of women who'd hidden, who'd fought, who'd loved, who'd lost. Women who'd protected their families, their communities, their people, often at great cost to themselves. Women who'd carried the weight of being different in a world that demanded conformity. And at the very end, her grandmother's last entry, written just days before she died. "To my granddaughter Elena, if you're reading this, then you've survived. You found a way to live with what you are instead of dying from the weight of it. I'm so proud of you. Remember, my sweet girl, we are not cursed, we are chosen, and the world needs guardians now more than ever. Love fiercely, protect fearlessly, and never apologize for being exactly who you were born to be." Elena closed the journal, tears streaming down her face. Marcus put his arm around her. "You okay?" "Yeah," Elena said, wiping her eyes. "I am," Grace smiled. "Your grandmother would be so happy to see you now. To see you living instead of hiding. To see you loved." "I wish she could have met Marcus," Elena said. "She knew," Grace said softly. "Before she passed, she told me you'd find someone. Someone who would see all of you and love you anyway. She said our bloodline had been waiting generations for that kind of love, for someone brave enough to choose us." Marcus looked at Elena. "I'm not that brave. You're the bravest person I know. You faced the world, faced yourself, and chose to live authentically. I just chose to stand beside you while you did it." Time passed, seasons changed. Elena and Marcus built a life that neither of them had thought possible. Elena became one of the Threshold Initiative's most valuable operatives, not because of her power, though that was considerable, but because of her heart. She approached every mission with compassion, every person with dignity. She saved lives, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, and every time she returned home, Marcus was waiting. One spring evening, 3 years after they joined the initiative, Elena and Marcus sat on their porch watching fireflies dance in the gathering dusk. The air smelled like honeysuckle and rain. Elena's head rested on Marcus's shoulder, his arm around her waist. "Do you ever regret it?" Elena asked softly. "Regret what?" "Choosing me, choosing this life, all the chaos and danger and weirdness." Marcus was quiet for a moment, and Elena's heart clenched. Then he laughed. "Not even once. Not even for a second. Elena, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Every moment of fear, every moment of danger, every second of not knowing if we'd make it through, I'd do it all again, because it led me here, to you, to this." Elena felt tears on her cheeks. "I love you." I love you too, Marcus said. Both versions of you, the woman and the serpent. All of it. They sat in comfortable silence watching the fireflies, feeling the night breeze. Then Elena spoke again. My grandmother used to say that we're born with two lives, the life we're given and the life we choose. I spent so long thinking my life was already decided, that being what I am meant I'd always be alone, always be running, always be afraid. But then you showed up, and you taught me that I could choose differently, that I could choose love, choose trust, choose to believe that being different didn't mean being alone. Marcus kissed the top of her head. So what life did you choose? Elena smiled, feeling more at peace than she'd ever thought possible. This one. Exactly this one. A few months later, Elena discovered she was pregnant. The news terrified her. What if the baby inherited her abilities? What if the child had to face the same struggles, the same fear, the same isolation? But Marcus held her hand and reminded her of something important. We'll teach them, he said. We'll teach them that being different is a gift, not a curse. We'll teach them to be proud of who they are. And most importantly, we'll teach them they're loved, unconditionally, no matter what. When their daughter was born, tiny and perfect with her father's eyes and her mother's determination, Elena held her and made a promise. You will never feel alone. You will never feel like you have to hide. Whatever you are, whoever you become, you are loved. You are wanted. You are enough. They named her Adas, after the first woman in Elena's line who'd merged with Nagu, a name that meant daughter of the king, princess, worthy. As Elena watched Marcus cradle their daughter, singing softly to her in the soft morning light, she thought about everything they'd survived to get to this moment. The fear, the running, the government facility, the choice to trust Dr. Hayes, the missions, the slowly built life. And she realized something profound. Her grandmother had been right. This wasn't a curse, it never had been. It was a gift. The gift of strength, the gift of protection, the gift of being able to stand between danger and the innocent, the gift of being different in a world that desperately needed people brave enough to be different. And maybe most importantly, the gift of teaching the next generation that they didn't have to choose between being themselves and being loved, that they could be both, that they could be whole. 1 year later, on a warm summer evening, Elena and Marcus sat on their porch. It had become their ritual, their time to breathe, to connect, to remember. Adese was asleep inside, her grandmother Grace watching over her. The fireflies were out again, dancing their ancient dance. And somewhere in the distance a serpent moved through the forest, ancient and powerful and free. Not a monster, not a curse, just another part of the beautiful, complicated, impossible world. Just like Elena, just like all of us carrying secrets we think make us unlovable, carrying differences we think make us broken, carrying truths we think the world can't handle. Elena turned to Marcus. You know what I realized today? What's that? That I'm happy, genuinely, completely happy. For the first time in my entire life, I'm not waiting for something bad to happen. I'm not looking over my shoulder. I'm not afraid of tomorrow. I'm just here, present, happy. Marcus smiled and pulled her closer. Good, you deserve that. You deserve all of it. Do you think Adaz will be like me? Elena asked. Will she be able to transform? I don't know, Marcus said honestly. But if she can, we'll handle it together. And if she can't, we'll handle that too. Either way, she'll know she's loved. That's what matters. Elena nodded, feeling the truth of his words settle into her bones. The journal Grace had given her sat inside on their bookshelf, generations of stories from women who'd carried this gift, this burden, this blessing. And someday Elena would add her own story to those pages. She'd write about a girl who thought she was a monster, about a man who taught her she was wrong, about learning to love herself, scales and all. About finding a place in the world where being different wasn't just accepted, but celebrated. About choosing, again and again, to live authentically even when it was terrifying. And she'd end her entry the same way her grandmother had. To whoever reads this next, whether you're my daughter or my granddaughter or someone generations removed, know this: you are not alone. You are not broken. You are not too much or not enough. You are exactly who you're supposed to be. The world will try to make you small. It will try to make you hide. It will try to convince you that being different is the same as being wrong. Don't believe it. Stand tall. Transform when you need to. Protect fiercely. Love deeply. And never ever apologize for being exactly who you were born to be. Because you, my beautiful girl, are a guardian, and the world needs you. All of you. Marcus squeezed her hand, pulling her from her thoughts. Where'd you go just now? Elena smiled. Just thinking about the future. About Adais. About all the women in my family who came before me. About how they'd all fought so hard so that one day, one of us could just sit on a porch with the man she loves and watch fireflies and be happy. That's a good thought, Marcus said. That's a beautiful thought. They sat together as the stars came out, as the night wrapped around them like a blessing, as their daughter slept peacefully inside. And Elena thought about the girl she'd been, the one who ran from her own wedding, terrified of being seen, the one who thought love and truth couldn't coexist, the one who believed she had to choose between being herself and being loved. That girl felt like a lifetime ago. A different person entirely. Because this Elena, the one sitting on this porch with her husband's arm around her and her daughter sleeping nearby, in a future stretching out before her full of possibility, this Elena knew something that girl had never believed. That real love doesn't ask you to hide. It doesn't demand you become smaller or simpler or easier to understand. Real love says, bring me all of you, the beautiful and the terrifying, the human and the serpent, the light and the shadow, and I will love it all. I will love you. Marcus looked at her, and in his eyes she saw her whole story reflected back. The fear, the courage, the transformation, the choice to trust, the hard-won peace. Forever, he asked softly, like he did sometimes. Forever, Elena answered, and she meant it. So let me ask you something. If you found out someone you loved was hiding a part of themselves they thought you couldn't accept, would you walk away? Or would you choose to love them anyway, completely, unconditionally? Elena spent her whole life believing she had to choose between being herself and being loved. But Marcus showed her that real love doesn't demand you choose. Real love says, bring all of you, even the parts that scare you, and I'll still be here. How many of us are hiding parts of ourselves because we're afraid of rejection? How many of us are running from the truth because we think the world won't accept us? And what would our lives look like if we stopped running and started trusting that the right people will love us anyway? Think about the secrets you carry. The parts of yourself you keep locked away because you're convinced that if people really knew you, they'd leave. What if you're wrong? What if the thing you're most afraid to show is exactly what the right person has been waiting to see? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what part of this story resonated with you. Tell me if you've ever felt like Elena, caught between who you are and who you think you're supposed to be. And if this story moved you, if it made you think, if it gave you hope that love can survive anything, hit that subscribe button. Because next time, I'm going to tell you about a man who discovered his wife had died 3 years before they met. And somehow, impossibly, she was still standing in his kitchen making breakfast every morning. You think this story challenged your understanding of reality? Wait until you hear that one. Until then, thank you for watching. Thank you for staying until the very end. And remember, the things that make us different aren't flaws. They're not curses. They're the very things that make us extraordinary. We just need to find people brave enough to see that. People like Marcus. People maybe like you. The world needs more people who choose love over fear, who choose understanding over judgment, who choose to see the whole person instead of just the parts that are easy to accept. Be that person. Choose that love, because somewhere out there, someone is waiting for you to see them, really see them, and love them anyway. Don't let fear stop you from being that light in someone's darkness. Now go. Live your story. Write your own ending. And never apologize for being exactly who you were born to be.